There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Catherine Baines from the Business Pod. The Business Pod is an e-learning platform that has been set up to help small business owners just like yourselves, help motivate you, educate you, and inspire you to take action in your business. And as part of our webinar series, we get experts in, like we've got Michael Doolin with us today, talking about business performance and to impart their knowledge to help you grow your business. So what I urge you to do today is take as many notes as you can as we go through. If you've got any questions, please type them in the chat box. If you think of anything after the webinar, please don't hesitate to drop myself or Michael an email with your query, and hopefully you'll learn a lot of great information from today's webinar that you can take back to your business. So hi Mike, hope you're well. I take it you can hear us okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Okay, so over to you.
Hi, everybody, and good afternoon. My name is Michael Doolin. I'm Managing Director of a business called Clover HR. Catherine, thank you for the invitation to come along this afternoon, and I appreciate the opportunity. I thought I'd just talk. The subject of the discussion this afternoon is how to make your organization great and how to keep your organization great and how to do that through the people proposition. So my thesis after 30 years in HR is I think every organization can be world class. I think every organization has the potential to achieve that. And I think everybody has people who work in the organization, they've got the potential to be great. And you as a manager, you as a director, you as a business owner, no matter how great or how small, can make that happen. That is my belief. That's what I've been spending 30 years over the last 30 years to achieve. And I'm hoping I might be able to share some thoughts and directions of travel as to how to achieve it. A little bit of background about myself. Pictures tell 1,000 words, as you can probably see from in there. I have two daughters at various stages of growth now, but they're 21 and 19. Eleanor and Lydia, they are what I affectionately call cost centers, but equally are very clever and capable young ladies. The lady in the middle is my partner, Emma. She's a school teacher, secondary school teacher in Birmingham. As you probably guessed, I come from a small village called Dublin, a little bit west of here, and continue to have strong links with my home country and visit it regularly.
Hi there. Sorry, I think we lost you there, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh, there we go. Okay, you're back. You're back. Sorry about that. So you're just saying the picture of your wife there. You pick up from that point.
And bottom right-hand corner is a little emblem from my mother, who plays a bit of golf, and she got a hole in one 6 months ago. So we're all incredibly pleased with that. So you can tell my life is influenced hugely by women at various ages. Moving on. I can move on to this one. Yeah. I play a little bit of squash. I'm in a squash league locally. Season ticket holder at West Brom for my sins. Used to manage my daughter's football team from under 10s to under 15s. They're all now a lot more mature than that. And follow rugby with a passion. Still play rugby for my local team in Droitwich. Cycle a little bit and support Amnesty from time to time. People don't really know this about me, but I played football once for Paul Gascoigne. Paul Gascoigne, for those who are quite young, was in his day, world-class footballer. Played for England, I think somewhere close to 60, 70 times. But his career was shortened by his off-the-field activities, sadly. But the game of football I played with Paul was in a restaurant in London where he was playing balloon football with his son, and he managed to kick the balloon in my direction. and I kicked it back. So I still claim that I played football with Paul Gascoigne. I moved on into my, you can see where I've spent the best part of my 30 years in HR. I've been a HR director or a HR manager in most of those organizations. Um, Outside of that time, I've been bottom right hand corner. I've been a um, associate lecturer at Warwick Business School and continue to be associated with Warwick. And on the bottom left-hand side, I've been a lay member of the Employment Tribunal panel in Birmingham and Bristol for 4.5 years. An experience that has led to tremendous insight and understanding about how to deal with various employment relations issues in the workplace reasonably well and keep yourself compliant. Um, on my travels, I've been lucky enough to win a number of awards in some of the businesses I've been involved in, and we've been able to reflect the excellence in some of the work that we've done in some of those Oscars or industry Oscars that we've been fortunate enough to succeed in. Um, I set up my own business, Clover HR, just under a year ago, March 17. I did so because I felt it was a tremendous opportunity after 30 years in corporate life to do my own thing in my own way. I'm tremendously passionate about how people can make a difference in the workplace. I believe I can bring that excitement, enthusiasm, and understanding to organizations. And frankly, it's been something I wanted to do for a while, maybe thinking that there are enough people out there who do it, and I have a chance to be able to do it now. And I was keen to be able to do that. Um, Let me start at the beginning, and I've got a quote on the slide there from a guy called Yang Chang. Yang Chang is chairman of China Life, one of the biggest organizations in the world, employs around 700,000 people. And he said, we employ 700,000 people and we retain them, yes, by offering a good salary. But the key to retaining a person is to keep his heart. How can you keep a person's heart? And that for me means simply, how do you engage people's hearts and minds so that they want to go above and beyond the call of duty? How do you get that discretionary effort from people? How do you ensure that they go above and beyond the call of duty every single day that they come into the workplace? Um, that kind of paradigm has exercised my mind for certainly the last 20, 30 years. And it's certainly been something that I've wanted to bring into organizations and I work with organizations on behalf of them. Um, this is quite a useful slide. It basically says on a scale of 1 to 5, where does your organization sit on the level of engagement? Are you an organization with limitless commitment, high work output, people totally on the page and totally aligned? Or are you an organization at level 5, which sees regular resignations, theft, opposition, solidarity, etc., etc.? Where do you think most organizations are? Can you think of an example of an organization that may be considered to be at level 1, level 2, level 3? Where is your organization? Why is it there? What can you do to try and move up the scale and stay at 1 or 2? Are you always going to be at level 1 or level 2 or level 3 or level 4? My argument is, and I'll hopefully give you some insight, is that every organization can move through this scale. Every organization has the ability and potential to get to level 1. Every organization can do so through their people proposition and by doing simple things well all the time. If we move on, um, again, just thoughts and insights over 30 years. Fundamental building blocks of every great organization are those that you see in front of you. That is leadership and teamwork. It's essential that every organization has an effective team of senior, middle, and junior managers who are aligned, who are purposeful, who set the journey, who direct that journey, who give meaning to my work on an everyday basis. It's essential that in order to achieve a great organization, that there's effective teamwork, collaboration, and support for the team in the environment. To use the analogy of football teams, it's one thing to have a football team full of superstars, but if those superstars are not on the same page, not totally aligned, they're not going to ultimately succeed. One only has to look at the fortunes of such football teams like Leicester, a Wigan, a Yeovil, teams that have come from nowhere to go above and beyond the call of duty to see that they can succeed. It's the same in business. Pride and commitment has to be at the core of every successful organization. I have to feel pride in what I do on an everyday basis. And here's the challenge. If my job is simply moving widgets from A to B, I have to have pride that I'm going to be able to do that job well. I'm going to have to be able to understand my contribution and my part in the overall organization's success is directly related. You have got to translate to me, Mr. Organization, Miss Organization, how my job role impacts on the overall organization purpose and direction on an everyday basis. That translation is at the core of every successful business. I've got to be
I think
committed.
that's quite hard to do in a lot of business, isn't it? As it really sort of comes down to really good training. Mike Noonman, who's on the call, just said he's read a survey last year that said 67% of employees are not engaged and 15% are actively trying to leave. And I suspect they're in businesses where they haven't looked at this at all.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't see that question, Kate, but thank you. I think the evidence speaks for itself. That's 15% are actually trying to leave. Think about the missed productivity, the missed performance, the missed attendance, the missed absence leave that surrounds. Think about the opportunity that says 67% of your organization are not engaged. And I think that boils down to a failure of leadership, failure of communication, failure of understanding as to what people can actually do to contribute to the business, and viewing the people proposition not as a cost, but as an opportunity. And I think that's what you've got to do. Being a clock watcher, whether you're an auditor or whether you're a widget maker, is not necessarily all your fault. I think people have got to understand that maybe I didn't understand what my value is, what my understanding in the organization is, how I was recognized in the organization. I think that's where organizations fall down. And that's what I meant by the fundamental building block around job content. People have got to enjoy what they do. People have got to understand that when I come in for work this morning, this evening, tonight, I'm going to enjoy the 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever it is that I bring to the party in my job. It's absolutely core. If those three fundamental building blocks, leadership, teamwork, pride and commitment, and job content are not there, no organization, in my opinion, has the chance to be great. They're absolutely fundamental. I want to tell a story now. It's maybe a few years old in my mind, but on the slide I give an example of an organization's long service program. And you can see at 2 years, for 2 years service, an individual received a badge and a mug, a commemorative company mug. I remember getting a phone call from a senior trade union official. It was a Tuesday afternoon when he rang and complained that one of his members had not received a mug for 2 years service. I remember sitting back in my chair that day thinking, you know what, there can't be that much wrong in the organization when somebody's complaining about not receiving a mug. But it reminded me that, you know what, some of these things are hugely important. These small things, these things that recognize my contribution, however small, are simply huge in the eyes of the individual. And organizations that fail to recognize the small things that make such a difference to individuals, fail to mi- fail a trick, in my opinion. It's hugely important to give recognition and a sense of importance to organisations. And recognition doesn't have to cost anything more than a mug and a badge. It can be a piece of paper. It can be as simple as a thank you. I asked the question of many business leaders today, how many of you have gone out of your way to say thank you to people in your organisation? When was the last time you went out of your way to say thank you? How hugely important would that be in the eyes of the individual? How how much extra commitment would be generated on the back of a simple hello? How many business leaders walk through the office or the factory floor without recognizing someone? How much, how many times do you recognize a birthday? How many times do you recognize a wedding anniversary? How many times do you go out of your way to inquire about the children's welfare at school or university? Simple things. Recognizing that employee's eldest child's first name, or their progress through education, or their illness of a mother or a father or someone close to that member of the family, obviously has to be rooted in genuine thinking and genuine care. But it simply goes a long, long, long way to ensure that that individual feels that you recognize and care about them as an individual. And I think mugs in the example that I alluded to are a really good reflection of how easy it is to put that in place. It's one of the fundamental building blocks. It reminds me of another story of a time when I was in a depot in North Wales. It was a Thursday morning this time. It was 6:30 early in the morning. Guys were ready to go out to deliver for the day. I was talking about a fairly fancy web-enabled um, recognition scheme where individuals could get um, uh, points or an award for achievement or accomplishments. And I remember John, who was a driver in North Wales. He was in a high vis jacket that had seen better days. He was drinking a cup of tea, a mug of tea by the door, and he said to me, "Michael, you know what? You can take that web-enabled recognition scheme and put it where somebody doesn't shine." Um, he said, "You know what? I went out yesterday. I went out of my shift time to deliver a parcel in God knows where and came back 2.5 hours late. And you know what I got for that, Michael? Yes, I got 2 hours overtime. But you know what I would have preferred was a simple thank you, a simple tap on the shoulder that said, thank you for going out of my way. That would have made such a difference. So I challenge the business leaders I'm involved with today. How many of you have gone out of your way to thank people today? How many of you have appreciated the contribution that's been made? I think it's easy to get right. Um, we did a number of things in an organisation I was involved in, now called DPD. And a number of years ago, I was able to sit in front of 300 people and say, you now work for one of the best 100 companies in the UK. You're able to go home tonight and say to your sons or daughters, say, Dad or Mom now works for one of the best businesses. You're now able to say you work alongside 75% of your colleagues who are proud to work here. How good would it be able to say that to your sons and daughters? How good would it be to be able to walk home tonight, drive home tonight, and be able to say, I feel good. I work for one of the best 100 companies in the UK. I think it's possible to do that. I think it's possible to do that by putting in place simple building blocks. How would I do it? I'd do some of these things. And again, these are insights over the last 30 years. I'd focus on the people agenda as locally as possible in your organization. So there are various departments, production, quality, finance, HR, uh, production, whatever the department is, technical. What does it mean to come to work in that business? What does it mean to enjoy my work in that area? What can we do in that department or that area to make life that bit easier? How can I focus on that? How can I measure the progress that I make? How do I record it? How do I count for it? How do I deal with it? How do I communicate what I'm doing? How do I put on the notice boards or on the emails or on the newsletters or on Twitter or on the feeds or social media how well we're doing in our organization? There is no excuse today for not being able to communicate. There's no excuse today for not being able to broadcast or promote how well you're doing. There's no excuse today to be in a position to get feedback from the people that work in your organization. There are numerous tools, numerous processes, numerous ways in which you can get feedback about how well people feel. Focus groups, meetings, heart to hearts, lunch groups, whatever works in your business at whatever time in the day is is possible. I always used to say to people, it is possible to make this happen. I always used to say to myself, the guy who comes up to work at 2 o'clock in the morning in our Newcastle business unit, that's the bottom line denominator for me. Is he aware of the message as well as the person who works behind a computer 9 to 5 every single day? Because if he's not aware of what's going on in the organization, as well as the person who works in the main office from 9 to 5, then we as an organization have failed. And until such time that he or she feels equally valued or equally important, we're not going to be able to drive that engagement. We're not going to be able to make that person feel extra special. We're not going to be able to feel that that person has been recognized for the level of achievement. That's why it's important to get into the level of detail by department. That's why it's important that you as a business owner need to ask your managers to be able to account for the people proposition. I, as a CEO, I, as a business leader, need to be driving that from on high. I need to be talking about the people agenda regularly. I need to reflect the work that we do on people every single day in an organization, perhaps aligned to their bonus pool, perhaps aligned to some form of discretionary incentive, perhaps aligned to just public recognition of the improvement in retention, productivity, attendance made by people in those departments. Um, a comment's been made that companies measure tangibles. They're the easy things, the widgets, the profit, the P&L, the numbers. Don't measure the intangibles, sadness, anger, despondency, frustration. Absolutely quite right. But those measures, those issues, they reflect themselves in attendance, sickness, engagement, customer retention, customer satisfaction, loyalty, etc., etc. And they're the soft measures that don't get measured. And that's why it's important to do these things. That's why it's important to see that they actually do have a bottom effect to P&L. Where would Carillion be now if people had paid more and more attention to the numbers? Where would certain banks be if people had been motivated by different goals? There are so many questions, so many areas that could be aligned. Um, I talk about the basics. I talk about the bucket. I talk about the ingredients that make up success in driving engagement. And I've alluded to some of these, not alluded to some others uh, in the last few slides. But my thesis is if you're able as an organization to get all of these right, to make sense of them in your organization, and here's the clever thing, they all have to happen at the same time. They all have to be leaving the station as trains going in the same direction. They all have to be perfectly aligned. You can't make them crash. They've got to be in a position where they all talk to the purpose and direction of that business. People have got to understand what teamwork looks like. They've got to understand the benefit program that underpins success and performance in my business, recognizes the contribution that I do. I've got to see that you, the business owner, care about my development, training, and support and wider growth as an individual. I've got to see that in the processes and in the care that you employ in your organization, that you actually do give a damn about me as an individual. I've got to feel that my service, my contribution, my discretionary effort is recognized. I've got to see that what I do on an everyday basis is translated into a contribution to the overall business success. I've got to have pride. I've got to enjoy what I do. I've got to be committed. I've got to be communicated with. I equally have got to be able to communicate with you. I've got to be able to see that my thoughts and opinions and insights are recognized, understood, and dealt with. I've got to start in the business as if I've been a long member of staff for quite some time. I've got to see that I'm making a good, quick, early introduction into the business. And I don't care at what level that takes place. Whether I'm a midget waker or whether I'm a director, I've got to see that the quick early wins that is possible for me to achieve are possible. It's hugely important that can be seen. So those 10 basic ingredients are for me what my 30-year career have been all about in various organizations. My challenge to you as a business leader, if you can get those 10 ingredients right, if you can mix them in the bucket all at the time, at the same time, you will drive engagement. You will see a bottom line impact in your business performance. I think in the next slide, I think about what you'll see if you get that right. You will see improved service if you're a service-driven business. You will get people going above and beyond the call of duty, doing that extra drop, making that extra service call, doing that extra audit, performing that extra technical review, producing that extra product if they feel that you recognize their contribution in their business. You will see retention of people. Why would somebody want to leave if they feel recognized, valued, and loved in the organization? Your customers, the people who receive the product, particularly in a people driven business. And in the people driven business, as you know, the service is a direct function of the quality of the people that you employ. They will come back to you. They will want to do business with you again. Your reputation, both internally and externally, will only go up and up. People will want to go the extra mile. People will want to exceed expectation. People will want to ensure that you recognize what they do. And ultimately, you add up all of those things, you do them all at the same time, your ultimate measure is profitability. That will improve. There are numerous studies, numerous academic studies, numerous company surveys from company bodies like the IOD and the CBI and others that say if you get this engagement thing right, you will want to go the extra mile. You will see profitability improve. And those organizations that have engagement right are ultimately the ones that hang around in 25 years' time. They're ultimately the ones that will succeed. And that's why we do engagement. There's some questions about how we in Clover support businesses today, but they're for discussion outside the room if people want to talk to me about that. So any questions, any thoughts, any opinions? Kate, I know you said you might have a question, or Mike, there might be a question. I'm very happy to take them.
Yeah, I just don't know. Mike put in the question box. Companies measure tangibles, which is actually such as sadness, anger, despondency, frustration, joy, which is really hard to to quantify. I don't know whether, in your experience, sort of the bigger the firm, whether they do questionnaires to test the happiness of the
Yeah,
firm or something like that.
yeah.
But
I mean, I would challenge that question about intangibles because, in my opinion, those intangibles are measured. They're seen in customer retention. They're seen in employee retention. They're seen in customer satisfaction. It is possible to measure them. You just have to ask the questions. And yes, you can do your survey monkeys to do your employee questionnaires. You should regularly question and analyze the thoughts, opinions, and feelings of people through annual employee surveys. But whether you do surveys or not, you need to be in a position to be able to say, I have actioned the feedback from these. I've actioned the output of these. I've got some form of return if I, as an employee, have completed one of those questionnaires.
And what are your thoughts on doing this sort of annual review with employees, even in a small business? Because a lot of the people listening to this probably are in a smaller business, maybe up to 10 employees. Do you think it's just as important to do sort of the annual reviews?
Yeah, I do, and I tell another story about this. I remember working in an organization with colleagues who'd worked alongside each other for 10, 15 years, very, very closely. And we developed an improved appraisal scheme, which we asked them to conduct. And I remember that one of the outputs from that conversation was from the manager. This is with a colleague that he'd worked alongside for 10 years. He said, "Do you know what, Michael? If I hadn't had that conversation, if I hadn't been forced into having that structured, direct conversation with Maggie about our performance, I'd never known about XYZ." What he discovered in that conversation, Kate, was a very personal thing about her health and well-being, which he was then able to act on and deal with. And she recognized that he would do so as a result of the conversation. In other words, it's another form of recognition. It's another statement, I care. It's another statement, you are important. So
It's a big part of
any
communication as well, isn't it?
absolutely communication, and you can never do too much of it. Every organization I've worked in, from the British Airways to the PwC to the DPDs, to the DHLs, to the Ford Motor Companies, big, large corporates, have never quite got right, and they'll be the first to say this themselves, have never quite got right communication. That's
Mm.
why you can never do enough of it. That's why it's got to be as local as possible. It's got to be as regular as possible. And I don't care how it's done. Just make sure it's done. Find the vehicles, the methods, the approaches that make sense in your organization. And it is possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. I think if, unless you've got anything else that you want to add there, I think that's our webinar done for today.
No, that's great. Thank you. Anybody got any questions? I think my email address and contact points are there, so I'd be
Yep,
happy to pick those up.
yep. If
And
you've got
Kate,
any
thank you
questions,
again.
Michael's email there just on the screen, michael@cloverhr.co.uk. Ours is info@business-pod.co.uk. And if you've got any questions at all, please just drop one of us a line and we'll see you on the next webinar. Bye for now.